Another day, another courthouse. I'm becoming familiar with so many courts around the nation, really just the East Coast, Virginia, Pittsburgh today. I'm just leaving Goodman versus the Allegheny medical examiner's office. This guy in the thumbnail is not today's guest, but that is the presiding judge, Daniel Regan. I have to say, there's a bunch of people who have been following this closely and are aware that Judge Regan quashed the subpoena from the witnesses that I had called, which were Chief Detective Patrick Young from the Beaver County ESU, Detective Gianvito, the guy who took the photo, I allege, of Maxwell Yerrick, they say Thomas Crooks, dead on the roof, and the Butler County coroner, William Young, not related to Patrick Young as far as I know, or the wife of Gianvito, whose maiden name is also Young. And I don't reveal that to give away any of the guy's personal information, just it's weird to me that everybody in law enforcement in that town has the last name Young, but whatever. The point is, some people were like, oh, this Judge Regan, he's a Democrat, so he's, crapping on Jason's subpoenas. I'm going to say that's not true. I mean, he is a Democrat. That seems to be true. People pointed that out to me. That's neither here nor there in this case. I have to say Judge Regan is certainly the friendliest judge I've ever encountered. He's just a polite guy. There's no way around that. He says hello, and when the court is adjourned, he makes polite small talk. Not in any kind of inappropriate way, like every other judge who's ever made any kind of conversation with me outside of the proceedings of the court has done so to be mean. Judge Regan is just a nice and reasonable guy, and he's sitting there listening to the arguments. The reason he explained today, I went in there ready to object to his quashing of the subpoenas, and I haven't done that yet because when he quashed them, he said he would give the reason at the hearing. I don't know why he didn't just write it in the order. The reason that he gave is that it's there, and he said, even if everything you're saying is correct, Mr. Goodman, we were in there last time. Meaning all my allegations about the photos that those cops took and everything. Look at this, they have the 10 Commandments here. Judge Regan said that even if everything that I said was correct, it doesn't really pertain to this case, because this is not the case of, is it Thomas Crooks on the roof? His only, jurisdiction in this case is if the Office of Open Records has the authority to tell the medical examiner to give me the stuff that I'm asking for, because their lawyer, who's also polite, Miss Shields, I mean, this is the first case I've been involved in where it's not a bunch of lawyers and judges trying to hang me up over a bunch of nonsense and screw me. This is just like a totally straight case. But she is saying that, just the law says they don't have to tell us this. It's a non-criminal investigation, and they just don't have to disclose to the public. To catch everybody up on what it is that I'm asking for, I said to the Office of Open Records, before we got to the Office of Open Records, in the right to know request, ZZ Top directing traffic, in the right to know request, I asked the medical examiner to share with us photos, notes, communications, any kind of anything that they used in the process of identifying the dead guy on the roof as Thomas Crooks. And I mean, they don't want to do that, which is weird. You can draw whatever conclusions you want to from that. I know I've drawn conclusions. Now, wait a minute, look at that. UPMC. That's some kind of medical university of Pennsylvania. Isn't that a weird, ominous? I don't know that I've noticed that before. So this is a good Pittsburgh walk and talk. Crooks' father worked for that thing, UPMC. Did one episode about that. Somebody had contacted me about a guy going crazy maybe a week or two before the assassination attempt, and it had like little rumblings of MK Ultra. Anyway, what I was asking, that guy's got something smart to say, no doubt. What I was asking for is notes, photographs, any kind of documents that help us understand how they determined that the dead guy was Thomas Crooks. And they're saying, we don't have to give you that. Pay us $350 for all the stuff that Ken Silva already got. And at first they were trying to say that, because I didn't pay, that was some reason. But that we got past, because I'm saying they gave a partial denial because they want me to pay for stuff that's not really the stuff that I need to see. We've already seen it from Ken. Why do I need to pay $350 again? I'm saying give us the stuff that's not in there. And so their lawyer, this is what lawyers do, right? She's citing the statute and saying this thing says we don't have to give it. So, that's it, basically. This wasn't a very...
Your stream, sir, but I've watched you before.
Hey.
When it came to the Butler thing.
Hey, man.
I watched you.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, too.
I just left the courthouse. We were having a lawsuit against the Allegheny County medical examiner for hiding evidence from the Butler assassination.
That's exactly where I was like, what's that guy doing down there?
Yeah.
I recognize you.
Thanks for saying hello.
What's happening? What's going on?
Well, I'm just explaining to everybody that the judge, it was pretty favorable. The judge is very fair in that court, I have to say. He basically gave me an opportunity. I have now until August 29th to provide him with, I want to tell you exactly what he said, findings of fact and conclusions of law, meaning there's no jury, right? This is an open records case. Mm-hmm. So he has summer interns there who are law students, and they're sitting in the jury box, but they're not actually the jury. And it was interesting because at certain times the judge stopped the lawyer for the respondent, who is the lawyer who works for the state, and said, oh, excuse me, counsel, because we have these law students here, could you please explain what de novo review means? Because the judge has an opportunity in this case to look at everything fresh as if it's a new case. And so she explained that to the law students. Then when I had an opportunity to respond what she was saying, I said, look, Your Honor, I know this is not a jury trial and that these law students aren't a jury. But if it were, there's something called jury nullification. The lawyer for the state was citing the statute, saying the medical examiner doesn't have to tell Jason any of these facts. I've asked them to tell us what photographs, what evidence did you use to determine that this dead guy on the roof is Thomas Crooks? And they're saying we don't have to tell you that by law. And I'm telling the law students, and the judge was listening pretty intently. He liked this and even commented that I was an impressive pro se.
You don't mind if I'm smoking?
That's fine. It's your sidewalk. It's bad for you, though.
I know. I feel like I probably should quit.
Yeah, you should. But so I said to the law students, if you were a jury, and I know you don't have any impact on the outcome of this decision, there's something called jury nullification, where whatever the law says, you could decide to tell them to give me the information. And I think that swayed the judge, because he could have just banged the gavel and said, Jason, you lose, they don't have to tell you anything, get the hell out of here. But instead, he gave us until August to present these findings of fact and conclusions of law, which I don't really know what that means because I'm not a lawyer, but I think what he's saying is, if I can find some precedent that shows that the court has judicial discretion to override this statute, he might say that they have to tell us.
The whole thing is fishy.
The whole thing is fishy.
The whole thing is fishy. Me personally, I think there probably was multiple shooters.
I think you're right. And it wasn't Crooks on the roof.
Why did they incinerate him?
They incinerated someone because now we can't tell who it is. Why is Crooks going to Quinn Loge?
Why was that building even left unattended?
Exactly. The whole thing is crazy. Well, listen, thanks
Hey, yeah,
for
I gotta
stopping
get
to
work,
say
but
hello.
Hey, no, thank you for having me on.
Good
Take
to
care.
see you, man. Isn't that cool? A little walk and talk around Pittsburgh, and we've got locals who are following the case. Well, we didn't even get into the conversation with that guy that Thomas Crook's father works for UPMC. It's interesting to note that is that Mellon? That's the bank. There's the cops. And then this is kind of the biggest building in town. So I don't know, what is this UPMC? University of Pennsylvania Medical something. But everybody basically just got the lowdown from the conversation with that guy. I didn't really like it that he was smoking, but it's the sidewalk, whatever. His city, let him smoke if he wants. I think it's a terrible idea. But this is Pittsburgh, everybody. And anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Judge Daniel Regan, sure, he's a Democrat, but he's a fair and reasonable guy. Steel Plaza, subway station, everything is steel in this town. But that's interesting that just somebody randomly on the street in Pittsburgh recognizes me from Crowdsource the Truth. How is this show so suppressed? I think many people are aware, this park is closed, of Crowdsource the Truth. Many more than we might realize based on the strict numbers. You know, I see Elon Musk retweeting people just for taking delivery of their Tesla. I do a test drive of the advanced release of self-driving on a live stream from the Starlink satellite, and he doesn't say anything. I serve him with process at his house with the New York style nail and mail. And you're telling me he doesn't know about Goodman versus the city of New York? I don't believe that. This is why it's so important for people to sponsor the show on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. People are telling me they're having a difficult time figuring out the Odyssey cryptocurrency. I really apologize for that. I apologize to Odyssey. I'm not trying to direct people away from Odyssey, but it was a major hit. Oh, we can go into this park. It was a major hit when I lost Odyssey 3 months ago because I had spent so much time telling people to subscribe on Odyssey. So a bunch of people were getting the show for free for several months on Odyssey. If you're one of them, I would really appreciate some sort of sponsorship payment on paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. But even better than that would be come over to one of the other platforms and continue your access to the sponsor exclusive content. Anyway, that's the deal with the happenings in court today. That guy had a sour look on his face. Doesn't want to be on video while he's maybe evading process himself, hanging out in the park. It would be very easy to trip and fall into this fountain, so watch out for that. But yeah. Also, I'm not asking for legal advice, but if you're a lawyer watching this show and you think that my interpretation of what the judge said was wrong, feel free to tell me. I think by saying we have this opportunity for these findings of fact and conclusions of law, I think he's saying if you can find a precedent that, because I said, if the court has judicial discretion to tell them to give it to me, like I got to look at the statute. I don't know if it says that they don't have to give it to me or if it says that they're barred from giving it to me. That's the thing. It might say I don't have a right to it, but doesn't mean they can't give it. And if the judge tells them, all right, tell him how you figured out it was Thomas Crooks, then maybe they'll tell us. I said, to this sort of mock jury of law students, I said, look, it doesn't matter what you think about Donald Trump, the man. This is a case of such unusual circumstance where someone's attempted to murder the President of the United States, killed a Pennsylvania citizen who was a father and a firefighter, that we, the public, deserve to know. I think I swayed the mock jury of law students. They all seemed kind of interested. As a matter of fact, they even made a point of saying that this was the only case on there today. Here, you can get speckled egg at this place inside the Union Trust building. Oh, no, that's the restaurant, the speckled egg. This is an interesting... You see, we've got the remnants of a once economically powerful city here. Mellon Square. Carnegie Mellon? What's all that? Oh my God, it's called the Ritual House. At the Union Trust building. This is a public notice of application. So there, you go in there, they're going to apply alcoholic beverages to you. Ritual House. What is that? Anyway, I think I swayed the members of the non-jury. They at least seemed interested. And I mean, they came in there today. He had the court reporter again, which they don't always have, I guess. You know, I was in there last time, and the place was totally packed. Now let me think, maybe that was a different day of the week. Today is Friday, so yeah, there's days that they hear motions. See, this is the Commonwealth, the Court of Common Pleas. So there's different rules as compared to district court. And I don't necessarily understand them, but when I was in Virginia, remember I had that issue where the judge said, oh, this thing is not properly before the court. I figured out later that means
where you just have to wish to make it so. Let's go up on the roof.
See, it's sad that there's not more people here. If this were New York, I think there would be more people listening to that lady. But the judge in Virginia said, oh, this pleading I'm waving around in my hand is not properly before the court. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? It's right there in your hand. But what she meant was I had to file a precept. I don't even know what that word is. But I had to tell the court, here, rule on this. Put it on the docket or whatever. So now I've done that in Virginia. That's the next contestant on the pleading is right. But all right, there we go. See, I felt very dejected when the subpoenas got quashed. And like, oh man, is this another judge who's just gonna not do anything that I ask him to do? But I have a better understanding now. He's saying that you can't just go in there and ask the court to do anything. It's got to be relevant to what's before the court. And this is an open records case. So it's just to decide if the Office of Open Records has the legal authority to tell the medical examiner to give me these records. One important aspect of this was also funny that caught the non-jury's attention. So, and I also found this kind of strange, that the final determination from the Office of Open Records, if you like churrascaria, Fogo de Chao is awesome. A little early for that, and it's expensive. But their final determination from the Office of Open Records was issued like maybe the day after Christmas or the day before Christmas or whatever it was. So this lawyer for the state, she went into a lot of details about what's going on in her personal life with regard to having to pick up her kids and stuff. Boy, it looks like that guy might have just injected some heroin or something. But she went into a lot of details about not wanting the case to run past lunch, I don't know what she expected I was going to say or do, but I just said I don't have that much to say. And obviously, anyway, the point is, she said, well, you know, she didn't even know about this, and it wasn't filed properly with the medical examiner's office, and she had to scramble to get it all taken care of and everything on Christmas Day. I mean, it kind of, to me, sounded like a whole lot of sob story. But she was nice. I wasn't trying to bust her chops. But I did say, you know, because she gave me Exhibit A, B, C, D, which was all the filings from the Open Records Office and what had been said. And I mean, one of them was this whole second final determination from the Open Records Office, where they talk about how I initiated this case like October 8th. They did something October 12th. So I said to the non-jury, I said, well, I don't know. They were notified October 12th. Maybe they were trick-or-treating on Halloween. Then the other thing in Exhibit A was the Open Records Office saying that on November 12th, they asked me if, you know, they said, hey, medical examiner hasn't responded. Do you mind extending the date to respond? And I said, I don't mind. Give them every chance to respond. I felt like maybe being reasonable might help me win the case, or, you know, get it ruled in my favor. And they made a footnote saying that they called the medical examiner's office to tell them that this was happening, and still nothing happened. So I told the non-jury, well, so November 12th, they called them. I don't know, maybe Thanksgiving got involved, because the lawyer had told us how on Christmas Day she had to scramble around to get this all done. And I said, I don't know what's going on, but it's, you know, in my view, this is about the office of the medical examiner not following procedures, being very sloppy in their record keeping. And that's when I said, if the court has the discretion to do this, I think this is about the public being able to rely on the police and the medical examiner's office following procedures, doing things accurately, giving us information based on facts. And I don't have any ulterior motive. I'm just trying to find out exactly what happened there in Butler on that day. And I'm telling you, the judge, I've been around judges who now snap at me and make faces and say all kinds of rude stuff. Caproni, total bitch. Judge Wheat in Virginia, I don't really care for her rulings. I think she's violated my rights quite a bit. So she's using judicial discretion to do things that I don't think she should be able to do. I'm not asking Judge Regan to do anything that he's not supposed to do. And I mean, he's basically saying, not that he's saying this, but I mean, it's interesting. You get to kind of understand this in court. Judges don't come out and say things. Look, the Frick building. So Frick obviously has a lot to do. I don't know too much about Frick. I guess he's a steel magnate because he's all over the place here in Pittsburgh. There's a Frick museum in New York that used to be his house. So I don't know that much about Frick. He's one of these old industrialists, you know, magnate, steel magnate, I suppose, or why else is he here in Pittsburgh? But all in all, I would say it was a pretty favorable day in the Allegheny court, the Pittsburgh Court of Common Pleas, in that, you know, I'm given an opportunity to cite, I guess, if I'm understanding what he asked for correctly, I'm given an opportunity here to cite, here, Forbes Avenue. I'm given an opportunity to cite, what did he say? I have it written down. Conclusions of law, findings of fact and conclusions of law. So I gotta go review that statute. I gotta do a little AI case law research and see. I'll tell it everything that happened and find out if there's some kind of precedent for the court to be able to tell the medical examiner to give me this stuff. I was originally gonna have Ken Silva come and be a witness today, but it's a good thing we didn't waste his time with that. There's really nothing that he could have said to them that would have move the court. He's basically just saying, hey, I get it. Even if you're right about all this, Jason, I can't just come out of nowhere and make them give you stuff. Go somewhere and, I mean, that's what I mean by asking. The judge is not going to say to me, oh, here's the case you need. He's saying, go find a case that gives me the authority to do this, and then I'll consider if I'm going to do it or not. What? Hola. How do you say self-deport? Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Please become sponsors. It costs a lot of money to drive to Pittsburgh and stay in hotels and park and do all that stuff. Crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. You can make a one-time sponsorship payment on paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth, or of course you can sponsor on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Have a great day.